Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by Financial Juice. This is George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. We have a lot going on this morning. Certainly news from overseas in Hong Kong with the protests are affecting the markets. We'll do a quick, quick recap of Friday's closes. Also, we have currently breaking news of personal income month over month at 3%. Expected was 3%. That just in, and S&P futures currently down 13 points. Just a quick recap of Friday's close. Dow Jones was up 0.99% at 17,113. S&P 500 1982.85 close up 0.86%. Nasdaq up 1.02%. We did start the day on Friday a bit in the lower in the S&P futures after the 8:30 readings, and then certainly we saw some stabilization and eventually a higher close on Friday. Also, U.S. PCE core month over month of 1%. I'm sorry, 0.1%. Expected 0.0%. Currently still seeing futures down 12 and a half. Getting into some of the overnights in Asia, we did see a little bit of a mixed market in Asia. Nikkei was up 0.5%. Hang Seng was down 1.9%. It was as low as 2.5%. This is on the heels of the protest in Hong Kong. That's certainly affecting markets globally. So, and certainly the protests are demanding free election from the Chinese government. Also, some other news that's happening in the U.S. There was a police shooting in Ferguson. So we'll see if that has an effect on DGLY and Taser. So again, we're monitoring that as well. Certainly continued airstrikes over Syria. Various conversations globally about that. So again, we're monitoring that. Getting into a little bit on the European side of the markets, we have down markets all around. The FTSE is down 0.25%. The CAC is down 0.56%, and the DAX in Germany is down 0.51%. So again, we're seeing that carrying through the lower markets in Europe, carrying through to the U.S. So let's see. Moving into what we're expecting in terms of economic news, we certainly saw the personal income, and again, personal income was 0.3%, expected was 0.3, and PCE core 0.1% versus the expected 0.0%. Previously was 0.1%. So at 10 o'clock, we're expecting pending home sales. Charles Evans is speaking at 9 a.m. Again, Fed speakers to keep an eye on, always looking for conversation around when rates will rise, when what the conversation about that is. And again, earlier today, Evans did mention that they don't want to raise rates only to drop them down again later. So again, we see this constant conversation within Fed governors on what'll happen and what they're thinking in terms of the rate environment. Baltic Dry Index falls 1.2% to 162 points. 10:30, we're getting the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Survey. Sorry, the should not be there. China preliminary PMI overnight was 50.5. The expected was 48.5. There's still concerns among several analysts that we will see some sort of slowing in the Chinese economy. Several shorter-term Treasury bill auctions results are coming in this morning. Will be coming in this morning at 11:30. Certainly, we have a 4-week, 3-month, and the six month. Also, we have farm prices uh, at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Excuse me. So, moving on, we have some. Bear with us here. We have some. Sorry, minor. Okay, we have some top insider purchases for today. We have FUND. VP purchasing 25,000 shares at $7.99. Again, not much volatility on Friday in the security. We'll see what happens this in today's markets. AEO, we have interim CEO purchasing 351,000 shares at $14.63. We have NVAX. We have Senior Vice President purchasing 9,000 shares at $4.17, and we'll certainly post that into the deck in just a few moments. LJPC Director purchases 196,000 shares. Take a look at LJPC. And so again, we didn't see much of volatility on Friday. We'll see if that turns into something this morning, currently at $9.50. And also DAKP, really no volatility on Friday at all. Very thinly traded security, but we do have a director purchasing 20,000 shares at $2.33. And this is something that is important to monitor. Even these stocks that don't, they're not that volatile, perhaps they don't have a lot of shares traded, but when you do have a director level officers and purchasing these securities, I think it's important to note. So one of the things that we do monitor these particular securities throughout the day. We'll see how the morning goes. So moving on to, we discussed the calendar for today. Also, there's some news out of Apple. Certainly, they're going October 10th. We're going to see a launch of the Apple iPhones there in China. Also, what we'd like to do is run through some of the. We'd like to run some with. Excuse me. I would like to run through some of the energy and commodity numbers with you and see where they are. Bear with us. So we have crude oil. The S&P futures currently at 17, down $12.25. Excuse me. We have 10-year yield at 2.495. Natural gas is up 0.041. Crude oil down 32 cents at 93.22. Heating oil is also down 0.0092, and on another distillate, gasoline is up 0.0088. Again, so one of the things that we'd like to bring up today is not just levels, but also this conception that maybe sentiment may be changing with respect to how markets react to any news that's coming out there. So obviously we had a couple of things going on last week. Certainly we had the airstrikes starting. We had also over the weekend we had protests in Hong Kong. So always a trader has to keep in mind how they're positioning their overall portfolio, and also how they're positioning their trades within intraday. Let's talk a little bit about, it seems like the sentiment is a little bit changing with respect to how markets react to any news that's coming out there. What's your feel on that?
Well, currently the feel is, as anyone can see, it's basically a who knows what to do kind of feel, because we have one day up 150 points, the next day down 260, one day up 160, next day down. We go into the weekend with a strong Friday, hoping for something to continue on a Monday, and yet again, we're down again. The futures, S&P down over 12 handles. No one really knows what to do. You have Hong Kong. You got a very busy economic week. You got payroll numbers on Friday. You have the ECB this week, where no one really knows what they're going to do. I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on that. And like I said, you are in a technical market. Clearly, the numbers that we've been showing you on our broadcast have been, currently spot on in a way. The 1980 levels in the S&Ps are clearly resistance and support. Once it was broken, crashed down to about 1960s, then it traded again on Friday back up to the 1980 level resistance, and now yet again bouncing off that, breaking to a new low. Hopefully, we'll see some feel today regarding volume and, get an idea of what the people are expecting to do with the quarter end. But, it's all a toss-up, George. No one really understands, and no one really knows what to do in this market. Protection is the key, in my opinion. You want to be a little cautious. You had that Hussman commentary over the weekend where he says he's extremely bearish. Hasn't been this bearish since 2007. So every little thing is being thrown into it, and at this point it's very difficult to get an exact feel of what to do. And the key thing right now is just to play it safe. Sit back and get a good feel, do your work, and then put some money to action.
I think that's a great point. One of the things we brought up last week was the VIX, right? So if we take a look at the VIX, in a market such as this, we have the VIX currently at, where are we here? Bear with us. 1485, right? So we talked about the resistance of 1650 to 17 as a top. In these types of situations where we have a strong or a risk off type trade, correct? So could we see VIX pop into the 16.5 to 17 range today? I mean, if we have a continuation in the risk off type trade in the morning.
Of course, currently in the range. I'll just throw some numbers out there. Currently in the range on the VIX is between $16.50 and $17 on the resistance side. Could we test that again like we did last time and break down? Of course. So the key thing to watch is, will we trade in the range at 16.50, 17, or will it hit it and collapse again like it did last time? It's something to keep a close eye on. A lot of people have been watching the VIX as an indicator on the direction of the markets. So the two numbers out there, we have are 16.50, 17 to the upside resistance. Current support, you're looking at around 14, low 14s to mid 14s on the VIX. So keep those numbers intact. Those numbers are ones that could, foretell a market move. But just a few other quick numbers just to throw out there, technical-wise. We have the NASDAQ currently, has been an insane move. We have resistance around 4,600, which is about 80, 90 points off where we are currently right now. Current support is around the 4,100, 4,200 level, so we have a pretty broad-based range on the NASDAQ to move in and out of. The Dow Jones, we have support at 17,000, and current resistance around 17,250 to 17,300 on the upside resistance on the Dow. It seems like we test that 17,000 number a lot lately, and key is to see if that number is going to break, and if it breaks with volume, then we may have a significant downside. The downside level, next level of support is around 16,500, so put that number also in the books. Let's just throw out the S&P numbers. Right now, we are at support. Support and resistance in a way. 1980 was our old support level, which was broken, and on Friday we bounced right back to that number. 1982 we closed. So that is our support resistance currently. The next level of support, you don't have anything until about 1950s. So keep those, keep those numbers intact. Play around with them. Do your work, figure it out. Hopefully, those can help you out and be able to either make you or save you some money.
Thanks, Milt. So some important topics here that we've brought up. So certainly the support is 1960. We saw I believe it was Thursday or Wednesday where we saw it dip below that 1960, and again, as Milt said, we did see that pop back to the 1980 resistance. So again, we seem to be a bit range bound. Uh, but again, really keeping an eye on those key support and resistance levels. Just a few things coming out just off the wire. Turkish economy minister Zeybeki says that TRY is not at a level where intervention is needed. Again, just some geopolitical and macroeconomic type news. Also, we're still seeing the crude oil in its 91 to 95 range. Again, we talked about on Friday the importance of oil being at a particular levels where it does impact how certain countries certainly benefit from crude oil being at these levels, specifically in Russia, specifically in Iran, Venezuela, certainly. So again, the longer we maintain these particular levels in crude oil, I think you're going to have a greater inflection on where those economies uh, progress into the future. So again, monitoring those. One of the things that we'd like to bring up is there's been some news hitting the desk last week and over the weekend with respect to hedge funds, larger hedge funds getting short the broader markets. Um, how do we, how does a trader really think about that particular news, from a broad-based perspective, and really begin to position their portfolios? So should we have a bit of a sell-off, right? We've really been in a range where really markets have been down, no more than 1.5% per day, right? So it's really, we haven't seen this massive sell-off yet. So is this something that a trader should really keep an eye on? And what are the internals maybe that you like to keep an eye on to maybe uh, utilize it, especially during the trading day?
Well, of course, George. It's always smart to listen to what the big boys are doing. They've been in the business much longer than we have. They have large accounts, they have large funds, they're known. So whenever someone like that puts on a position, it's always smart to think to yourself, maybe they have a feeling that we don't have yet. Maybe they know, either they know something or they just want to put protection on themselves in place of their longs. But this is where you have to put your egos aside and listen to, not listen to, but get some ideas from the outside people who've been in the business for 20 plus years. If I hear Icon doing something, if I hear Tepper doing something, just throwing names out there, I'm going to listen. They've made the money. They've made their, they have the right to say what they have to say, and people should listen to what they have to say. You know, it's never going to be a correct thing to do. They may be incorrect, they may be right, they may be, who knows. But it's always smart to listen to what the big boys are doing. Always smart to take a step back and see what your portfolio is all about, and think to yourself, if you need to put on some protection, this is extreme volatility. Put that protection on. We've had 5 straight days of 100 plus moves in the Dow. Today could be the 6th. So the volatility has come back into the market. The levels, that we've discussed before are being hit and, clearly are tradable. So, like I always say, the market had a great run. Sometimes it's smart to put on some protection. Even if you're wrong, at least if you are right, you can benefit on the downside and still be able to hold on to your longs.
That's a great point, Mo. So if, for protection, so if we, certainly with the use of options, and again, we'll begin to get into the use of options, um, more from a broader based perspective and also from specific individual securities. Milton brought up some great points with respect to understanding what the larger funds are doing. Throughout the day, what we also monitor is filings. What you see is we mentioned quite a bit last week on um, where are some of the larger filings of whether it's 10%, 24% into specific securities. Um, what effect will that have on specific securities and how to position your trade, not just in the intraday, but also in longer term perspective. So I think that's really important to note. We'll get a quick recheck of the markets. We're seeing futures at the low of the morning so far, down 14.25. S&P's at 1962. So again, we're monitoring that pretty closely. Traders should really keep an eye on that. Milt, let's dive into. We talked a lot about these headline news. Something came out of in the U.S. in Ferguson. Police being shot. How does certainly it's headline news. We have we want to keep an eye on body cameras, right? It's what DJY taser. They've been in play. It seems as though it's a favorite to play among traders, especially when this type of headline news comes out. Correct?
Oh, of course. You always want to keep an eye on news that many people do not adhere to. Something out there that many people are not talking about. Clearly, I'm surprised that no one is really even mentioning the fact that a police officer was shot there. It's sad to hear, but we're here to make some money, so we have to figure out ways that a person can sit and trade off of that news. DGLY is one of the names in Taser, TASR. Those two names are the ones to watch in that sector. Many people are trying to push GoPro, GPRO, as a play off of wearable cameras. Not true. Many people just keep trying to push that train forward. Anything they can think of, they're going to throw in there regarding that company. The only names in that area, the only names in that sector you can watch are that, TASR, Taser, DGLY. One of the small ones, ISNS, is always pumped, but yet again, that has nothing to do with wearable cameras. The play here is watch them. Clearly they're not in vogue this morning. The market is poo-pooing everything today. But keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on any news that you hear that is not mainstream, because that news is the ones that could be the ones that work if we are the first ones to the game. George?
Yeah, no, that's a great pointer. So if we take a look at Taser, bear with if we look at Taser, we look at the volume from Friday. We did see a little bit of a tick up in Friday. Not much volatility in the security. But we are let's see what happens. As Milton said, sometimes the news doesn't. Right now, the bigger news is more macro economic, more geopolitical. Certainly, again, we're having that information coming out of Hong Kong with the protests. That the proverbial concern of economic slowdown in China and Europe. But again, if markets aren't paying attention to particular securities initially, that could be an interesting play during the day. So again, watching that Taser, watching that DGLY, GoPro, see how things progress out there. Milton, that large cell program we just came through. Is that where's that coming from? Is that
Well, yeah, the S&P's just had a sharp downtick of about 3 or 4 handles on a large volume sell. So it's been a very sorry about that. It's been a very interesting morning. We have about 35 minutes left to the open. So clearly, sit by your desk and make sure that you have some sort of idea of what to do with your positions.
Perfect. Thank
It's
you.
a crazy one this morning, guys.
Yeah, no, we did see the S&P futures tick down. What about 3 handles now down 17, down 18 now, below that 1960. So again, we've seen this before. Interesting to see if we can hold on to that, whether it's going to pop back. So one of the other plays we saw, we did see Apple. Now it's trading at where are we now? 99.10, correct? So we'll see how that works through the news. Over the weekend we had a lot of digestion of the news that came through last week with respect to the Bendgate and several various other issues on the software. It seems as though the software that they're coming out with at 8.0 8.0.3 is seems to be fixing a lot of things.
Yeah, George, let me jump in on that real quick. I've been doing a lot of work over the weekend, and it seems like that Ben Gate whole fiasco is not really falling out of bed yet. A lot of people, I actually went to a whole bunch of stores in the area, and people are actually literally, George, standing inside the stores and bending phones. Like it's been a very interesting month for Apple. So clearly that whole Ben Gate fiasco is not out of people's minds yet. It's actually quite comical walking into the store and actually seeing people picking up the phone and trying to bend it. So clearly, keep an eye on it. They have that thing going on in Ireland too, as well with the Irish and the taxes. So it's going to be in the EU. It's going to be very interesting in this new feel on this Apple. So keep an eye on that one, guys.
Perfect. No, I'm glad you brought up getting us a little bit more involved in the Apple. So one of the things that we've been monitoring over the last several months is this idea of staying power of a particular headline. So if we for example last week maybe it was just a fluke, maybe a Bengate or so forth, but clearly this as Milton said, it's still out there. These conversations, whether or not these phones bend. So, what is your from a technical analysis perspective? We can just take a brief look on Apple. Where are we looking? Where are the key support levels that a trader would be looking at? And should there be any other headline news? How would it impact that stock?
Well, clearly, we are at the resistance levels in Apple. 150 to about 101, 101.50 is clearly resistance. When you sit back and look at it, George, and you think to yourself, if this continues and, with the markets and, the little negativity here and there on Apple, we can clearly see a 95.50, 95.75 number on this number. That's what the support is. If 90, the 100, we're clearly at $99 right now. That's the next level of support. It could be around 98, 98.40, 98.50. Keep an eye on that number. If that number breaks, we could easily see a 95.50 number. So, it's not very easy because Apple does also move with the market. So if the markets see a vast downtick, we could see this Apple go to that 95 level. And at that point, a lot of people are giving up a lot of profits in that name. So it's always interesting to see if certain levels are broken. Maybe you see some stop losses starting to hit and people start taking some profits. And that 95 level could see some, you may be able to see it. Who knows? It all depends. But, that's the number. Keep an eye on it, and we'll see what happens today.
Absolutely. No, good point, Mo. So one of the things is what we're seeing is this shift in perception, or possible shift in perception, because when everything is rosy and everything is great, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mil, the perception in the market when everything is good, they actually they not disregard bad news. They certainly digest bad news, but the market digests it differently when the perception changes, right?
Of course. Nowadays when there's bad news, people think there's this, it'll be forgotten in a day. We'll wipe it under the rug and we'll just keep buying the stock. When you have a market where the feelings kind of change a little bit, any negative news, you could see a little more a bigger downtick because people are thinking to themselves, well, we have the market negative, we have what's going on overseas, which is negative. Now the mentality may be maybe let's sell a little bit if we start hearing some bad news. Typically, this Apple would have been washed under the rug and just been like, you know what? It's Apple. Forget about it. It's a software glitch. They always have software glitches, and they fix it the next day, and nothing ever happens. Now the mentality has shifted a little bit. We're getting a little more movements in the markets, so everything matters now. Every little comment, every little news headline could be retroactive on every stock, not just Apple, but every single stock.
Yeah, no, good point, Milt. One of the things what we want to keep an eye on, and remember, we do bring up high level conversations, but why do we bring up high level conversations? Because those, if even if you're buying a particular security, and the market is negative, that's going to have an implication on your security, right, Milt? It's what's the proverbial saying that if you're short the stock, uh, you're being affected when you're in a particular security that's affected by the overall market. I know it's really silly to say, but when the market is negative, it's going to have an effect on that particular security as well. So even if uh, when Apple comes out of this and so forth, the fact that we are in a perceptibly negative environment, or more negative environment that we have been recently, that's going to have an effect on certain equities, right? And that's something, that's why we bring up these particular concepts. Is you always have to keep an eye on the larger scale, and into the more detailed securities, if you're trading securities like the Apple.
No, I agree. I think you always want to keep, you know, you always should have as a trader, you have your broad field. The broad field is the market. You take an understanding of what's going on in Asia, you take an understanding of what's going on in Europe, and then you understand what's going on in the U.S. After you get a good understanding of the broader market, then you could break down stock by stock. But you have to always think to yourself that the market will have some sort of reaction on the stock. If the market's down 500 points, 90% of the time, any big cap name will be down with the market, no matter what is going on. So it's a good field to get a broad look and then an individual look. Always do your work.
Correct. No, that's fine. So let's get a quick recap of where we are in the markets here. Futures are down 20 mil. So we went through that 1960 level. Where are we looking below that 1960? I know you mentioned last week there's some key support levels below that 1960. Where are we looking at? 1956? That's a level as well? Where are we seeing that next support level in the futures here?
Well, if we're looking at the futures, George, give me 1 second. Let me just pull up
Yeah,
that
sure,
chart.
absolutely. So
So we're looking right now. The next level of the futures is 1950. 1950. If 1950 is broken with volume, you could see initial next level support around 1928, 1930, and the ideal support 1890, 1900. That's where if that level is broken, that's a whole new ball game, guys. So I wouldn't even go there. But right now we're at 1950s. 1952, 50 around that level. You're gonna have some support. But if that's broken, I easily could see low 1930s, and then the big number around 1900s.
okay, so again, so a lot of work to do today in terms of monitoring the markets and get an idea of how to position your trade in this particular environment. A quick check of the European markets. We are down across the board. FTSE's down 0.28, CAC is down 0.61, DAX down 0.6, down 0.61%. Excuse me. Um, Natural gas futures are higher. 0.046. Gasoline is up 0.006. 10-year, certainly a risk off trade. It's 2.482. So again, seeing Evans did begin speaking. We'll see what the rhetoric on that is, and we'll see what the 10-year yield. So just as we're going to finish up in just a few minutes here. some closing thoughts here, Milt. So one of the things we're seeing a breakdown in the markets. We're seeing a weakness across the board. We're seeing even broader name stocks like Apple uh, coming coming in a bit. Um, so definitely, as traders in the intraday and longer term, have your stop losses in. Anything else that you're keeping an eye on when you're taking a look at markets like this? One of the things that I keep an eye on is certainly volume. You mentioned it before when you're talking about technical analysis. Remember, technical analysis is monitored by just about everyone from uh, large, large scale banks to hedge funds to to the regular investor, and we want to see that follow through in the volume when we're in those particular levels. So that's one thing that I'm looking at. Just bear with us, we're just getting this through. Shells from Syria landing inside Turkey. Heavy Turkish military presence seen. So again, it seems like we're getting this inflection of um, geopolitical news that's affecting this particular market. So that's something. So it's we're seeing this market being affected by the headline news again, a more macro headline news. So keep that's what I keep an eye on, more headline news, specifically in environments such as this, and also volume. Milt, what are you keeping an eye on today?
Well, the only thing that matters right now is clearly the markets and figuring out which direction to go. Always keep an eye on the geopolitical news. Who knows what can happen overseas. It's something that's out of our control. So it's always a smart thing, at these levels. Think to yourself what direction you want to go, and then if you have to do it, you put on some sort of protection. You never know what's going to happen with the Hong Kong. You don't know what's going to happen in Spain. You don't know what's going to happen in France. Who knows what's going on in Syria, in Turkey, in Russia, in Ukraine? With everything like that going on, how could you feel so compliant in going 100% long this kind of market? It's always smart to put on some protection or take some off the table, sit back, evaluate, and see what happens. We have September, October. September's done with. We have quarter end coming up the next couple of days. Then we have October, one of the other months during the year that are, treacherous. You got to be careful. And then maybe we have that whole Santa Claus rally. Who knows? But that's down the road. Well, right now, all you can do now is protect what you have. Make sure you're still in the game to participate in the Santa Claus rally. Sit back, evaluate, plan your day. Have your stops in place, and good luck, good hunting, and hope you have a prosperous day.
Absolutely, and just as a follow up from Friday, one of the things that we were talking about at the close of Friday and over the weekend is this effect from Bill Gross's departure from Allianz and into Janus. How is it going to impact the high yield fixed income and overall fixed income type portfolio? So I think in addition to everything else that Milt brought up, in addition to the global politics, how are the larger portfolio managers going to position their fixed income portfolio? So I think that's something to monitor as well. So just as a recheck of where we are before we sign off, we have European markets still down a bit. FTSE down 0.34%, CAC is down 0.72, DAX is down 0.75. That is the low of the sessions. We have S&P futures down 18 at 1958. So again, we talked about that 1960 support level. We did go through there. We'll see how things progress into the markets, into the open, excuse me, and and again, monitoring that 1950. We'll see. I'm really keeping an eye on this headline risk where I believe the markets are keeping a very close eye on what's happening in the Middle East, and that effect on the S&P futures. I do see more and more of that in the last several days. So again, my thought process is that we will see some whipsaws, but again, keeping an eye on that S&P futures. Um, thank you for joining us today. This has been Unusual Activity, powered by Financial Juice. Thank you.